are building, we are building, we are building. What's up, everybody? This is Dr. Joe Daniels, host of the Build Community Through Love podcast, where we highlight the efforts and strategies used to empower and grow community through economic development, community development, and education. For episode 13, we have Marcell Jackson, a friend of mine from North Carolina, the illustrious North Carolina Agricultural and Technical State University. Y'all, Marcell is leading, he is serving, he is empowering, he is teaching. He's doing so much to build community up in the Milwaukee area. So I'm excited to have him on the show today. Real quick, let me read a little bit about Marcell so you can know a little bit about him, and then we'll jump into the episode. So Marcell Jackson is the brilliant factory project leader at GE Healthcare, who is enabling the digital transformation across global manufacturing sites. He has been with GE for the last 8 years. He is a GE recruiter and a certified project management professional. Marcell is also a resume writer, career coach, and the founder of Professionally Developed LLC. He has a Bachelor of Science in Electrical Engineering from, like I said, the illustrious North Carolina A&T State University. In 2018, Marcell was named GE Healthcare's Volunteer of the Year and BizTime Media's Nonprofit Excellent Corporate Volunteer of the Year. Marcell is a husband, a father, and committed to exposing Black youth and professionals to opportunities in STEM with an emphasis on engineering and tech. That's a little bit about Marcell. So let's go ahead and hop into the show. We're lucky, you guys. We are lucky. We're here for episode 13. Super lucky to have the wonderful, professionally developed volunteer of the century, Marcell Jackson. What's up, man?
What's up? I'm happy to be here.
I'm happy to have you on. First, so we can get started, let everybody know who's listening a little bit more about yourself.
All right, Marcell Jackson. I'm the founder of Professionally Developed LLC, which is a full-service career coaching, resume writing business. I'm also electrical engineer by trade. I'm a project engineer at GE Healthcare here in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. That's me. Husband, father, business owner. Yeah.
That's real. So, guys, I had a chance to meet and get to know Marcell at the best institution in the nation, the world. Go ahead, say it, bro. Go ahead.
The illustrious
go ahead, say it.
North Carolina Agriculture and Technical State
right.
University.
That's right.
Aggie Pride.
So look, Marcell was my VP when I got introduced onto the leadership of NSBE at the chapter level. And my man has been just leading and going for it ever since. He left the institution, went into the corporate setting, and he's just been killing it. And so before we really get into all of the community work that you've done, I really just want to know, was the resume writing piece and that business for itself, was that like a side hustle piece that you started and you built it into an actual business, or how'd you get that started?
Yeah, so it is currently still a side hustle because I mentioned that I got a whole full-time job. Mm-hmm. Yeah, actually, speaking of NSBE, which is the National Society of Black Engineers, for those of you who do not know, that's actually where I got my start. So in 2010, I was the finance chairperson. So what you were able to do if you sponsored us as a corporation, you got a resume book filled of resumes from all the engineers in the chapter. So you kind of got first dibs on top talent. So part of that was me collecting resumes, and I'm just going through them and reviewing them. And I mean, again, I'm a sophomore at the time. It's upperclassmen, it's graduate students, and some trash resumes out there. So I spent a decent amount of time combing through, editing, getting all of that together. So that kind of gave me my start. And since then, just went ahead. Anybody who needed help, needed a resume, I would go, hey, Marcell, can you look at this for me? Can you update this for me? What do I need to do? I'm not hearing anything back. So I would go do everything for free. By the way, after a while, just about everyone kept getting interviews and job offers and negotiating their salaries. So in 2016, I decided to formalize it and make it a business or an LLC. So now I charge people for those exact same services. But yeah, that's kind of how I got started.
I need to go back and figure out what skills I learned from when the membership chair. I didn't know
Go
I didn't know
ahead.
that's how you got your start. I hope it
Yeah,
wasn't my resume that actually helped you get.
I mean, it was several. The chapter had well over 100 members. So
That's
yeah,
crazy. No, but you're right. Because I mean, a lot of people joined NSBE because they wanted a job. They weren't really trying to do all the community service, all the different programs. They were just like, I need a way that's going to get me more exposure so I can get either an internship, co-op, or full-time employment. So that's real.
yep.
So then take me through a couple of different tips then and some tricks of the trade that's, required at each level. So for people who are leaving college or graduate school, some tips that they need to have just building their resume up. And then if you're looking at people who are trying to transition jobs, either changing jobs inside the same company or moving on to something completely different. What are some tricks that folks need to just know that you can give away for free, and then we can, push people towards professionally develop so that they can keep more information?
Yeah, I'm with it. I also do free resume reviews because I believe in helping. I only start to charge people when I'm the one that's doing the work. So for all of my recent grads or soon to be grads, just make sure that your resume has all of the current information on it. Also, make sure that whatever field you're going into, like some of those technical skills or hard skills, show up on your resume. If you say you didn't have an internship, but you worked on all of these projects throughout school where you started to learn things. So for engineering, if you started to design things, run different analyses on things, making sure that all of those technical words show up on your resume. So when recruiters are looking, they're looking to see, do you have the skills necessary to be successful in this role? So if you're able, the more technical you are, you're able to make your resume tailored to every job position, the better off you'll be. And also, since you're in college, I know everything's going super virtual right now because of the state of the world, but attend several of the virtual or in-person, comfortable and social distancing college fairs, career fairs. They're happening all the time. And the beauty of being a collegiate student is you kind of got a free pass any and everywhere because they just get that type of love, which not necessarily the same way once you're full time. So that'll be my advice there. I would say for the person that's looking to transition internally, start to make plenty connections. Also, since you are internal, you could probably see who the hiring manager is. So as you're going and updating your resume, make sure that you're putting all of the keywords from the new job description into your current resume, as long as they can apply to your skill set. So when they go and actually look at your resume, they're like, well, hey, if you're familiar with these 3 programs, these are the 3 programs that I need. In my mind, as a manager, as a recruiter, like I don't have to really train you. I could just give you enough and keep going. And being internal, send your resume over to the hiring manager, set up a 30-minute call to say, hey, can we speak about this position? This is my resume. Do you see anything lacking? So I don't know what your timeline is internally, but some managers are willing to work with you to say, hey, I see you're lacking in these skills. Maybe you grow a little bit in this, or these were 3 things I seen on your seen in the job description that wasn't on your resume that I'm really looking for. So can you revamp it? So I know that happens. Externally, it's all about kind of beating the bot or the robot. So most of the bigger companies use an applicant tracking system or ATS system.
Mm-hmm.
And what it does is it looks at all of the keywords on your resume, scans them, and then scans all of the keywords on the job description to see how much of a percent match you are. So if you ever went ahead, applied for a role that you knew you were qualified for or overqualified for, look, Eric, kickback email, hey, sorry, you're not going to the next level. Typically, that's because it wasn't enough keywords or buzzwords in your resume that showed up on the job description. So that's the biggest thing. Just remember, your resume only has one purpose: to get you the interview. Then the interview gets you the job. So
Got it.
it's my advice in a nutshell.
So, I mean, because saying that opens up a lot of information for me, because typically,
Okay.
even when we're going to career fairs, we bring the one generic. It's not like one day I want to work at like potentially 7 companies, and at A&T,
Yeah.
you always had your GE, you always had Lockheed, you always had John Deere, you always had I don't know. I'm just throwing off the top of the head through all like the little merch and stuff
Yeah,
I
yeah,
had.
yeah.
And so you would just
Gotcha.
come in with the same exact basic resume. And
Yeah.
so I'm assuming that's now people need to stop doing that and actually become more targeted to what they're doing, especially for those who are not in school anymore.
Exactly. So I'll say when you're in college, like shoot your shot. They understand you have little to no experience. They're expecting you to ask questions. They want to get to know a little bit more about you. They know you want to learn more about the company. So that's perfectly fine. But as you start to matriculate, now you're out. You need to get specific in what you want. So yeah.
Got it. That makes sense. And so outside of just having the resume, you do work on websites, you're doing work on, just your online presence. So if people look you up, those things are still, showing you in good light and good standing. Why is it important to have an online, or is it important to even have an online professional footing so that, folks who are looking for people can potentially find you?
Yeah, I 100% agree that you need to show up digital. This world is becoming way, way more digital. You need to have a presence there. And right now, the only really professional like space out there right now is LinkedIn. So I encourage each and every person to have a LinkedIn profile, update your LinkedIn profile, post on LinkedIn. I was just reading an article or watching a video, but it said, hey, LinkedIn has 60 million users and about 40 million of those users are in decision making roles within their company. So cool, you can spend your time on IG, Snapchat, TikTok, Facebook, fine, right? But if you are looking to transition positions, if you're trying to just brand yourself a little bit more professionally, be found and show up professionally, like spend some time on LinkedIn. Definitely do that. Even as business owners, podcasters, you never know who's that next person, who that you might be one connection away from your next sponsor, your next client. And typically professionals are there looking to interact with other professionals, to do business, to maybe hire someone else. So yeah, so what got me on LinkedIn? Also at A&T 2011, someone said, hey, if you get a LinkedIn profile, the way the Google algorithm works, it'll show up before your Facebook profile. I was like, really?
Hmm.
Right. So again, right. Hey, they're Googling candidates. They're doing everything else. So if the first impression people get when they Google Marcell Jackson, right, is my LinkedIn profile, what I'm doing, how do I show up professionally? Like I was with it since then. Also, for any of the job seekers, the way someone else put it to me was when you're applying on Indeed or Monster, any of these job boards, is you putting your application out there to the world. On LinkedIn, recruiters are actively looking for people with your skill set. So you could pretty much, select the open to work and making sure everything else is fine. And then recruiters will actually reach out to you. So the reverse will happen. So it's a win-win.
Dope. That's important. All right. So we talked about the side hustle piece,
Yep.
but do you expect this thing to become the full-time company soon?
Nope.
Okay.
Or no, right now is manageable. You also mentioned website design. So I did
Mhm.
mine. I designed my wife's website. She's self-employed. Then someone else reached out and someone else reached out. And before I was just turning people away because I'm not into that because people are picky, especially when it comes to their website. But hey, I'm like, hey, let me add on this other branch, this other arm. I feel like the business is growing at a decent rate.
Okay.
Like I went from, and I started averaging 1 to 3 customers per month. That's increased over the past 6 months to like 1 to 3 customers per week, right? So it's starting to increase. I would love for it to grow more, so to build that community, maybe bring on an intern, maybe a college student, and try to like help and put them on, and then just kind of invest in them. But as far as this has been the only thing that I do now, I enjoy being an engineer and technologist too much. So
Wonderful.
yeah,
Wonderful. Wonderful. So the thing that connected us is also rooted in service, right? And
correct.
so being a part of NSBE, the National Society of Black Engineers, I mean, one of the key responsibilities of being in the organization is making sure you're constantly giving back. And so before we really get into the work that you've done and the work that you're doing from a
Mm-hmm.
volunteers level in the community, walk me through, because I actually work at a small firm, so it's a little bit different than
Okay.
a big honcho like a GE. But walk me through how you navigate balancing volunteer work and your day-to-day full-time responsibilities.
Got you. No, thanks for that question. It started, let's call it first first rotation. So started on the I started at the company on a rotational program. So every 6 months we're changing positions. And on top of that, we had to take classes during this engineering development program. So we're at work, we're taking classes, we're writing papers. So it gave me a sense of being a little bit more efficient in how I do my work, because you can't use work time to work on class stuff. So it's like, okay, hey, I need to get really good at doing my job.
Mhm.
From then, I talked to my manager. A volunteer opportunity came to like mentor a robotics team at a middle school. Talked to my manager about it. She said, "Hey, it's fine." It was every other Friday for about hour and a half. She's like, "As long as you're getting your work done, you're fine." So I'm like, as long as I get my work done, I'm fine. And at the company at GE, they also count volunteer time as work time, just because they invest in employees and support employees giving back to the community, right? So that was like the biggest two helps. So ever since then, I've always had managers who kind of understood. I think I went from one asking permission to say, "Can I volunteer? Is this okay?" To, "Hey, I have to bring this volunteer cell to the to the position as well, because I'm invested in the community. So let me just go ahead and do that." And since then, everyone's been super receptive to say, "Hey, as long as you're getting your work done, we're fine." Other managers said, "Hey, can you coordinate more volunteer events for us, because sometimes we get so much tunnel vision in there." And the biggest thing is the calendar. So I calendar in everything. Like, if it's not on my calendar, more than likely it's not happening. So yeah, that's my like biggest organizational tip for that.
That's real. And so this also probably connects um, the side hustle piece from an actually an advice standpoint. But
Yeah.
for those who are young, or for those who just have never given themselves permission to do this,
Hmm.
what was that first time like, having to approach your manager and ask, "Hey, are you okay with me going out for an hour and a half every other Friday for the next, I don't know, 6 months?" I mean,
Yeah.
because that could be intimidating. I mean, I'm sure a lot of people just say, "I would love to do it," and they say, "Well, it's from 3:30 to 5," and you're just like,
Hmm.
"I can't do that." So, what? Walk me through that piece of shaking the fear of asking that question to your actual manager or supervisor, boss.
Gotcha. So if you're passionate enough, you'll do it. So one of the favorite quotes that I love is, "We make time for the things we want."
Mm.
So like step one is kind of committing to say, yes, yes, I'm doing it. Step two is when you're speaking with your manager, um, definitely have a backup plan as well. So if you go and say, "I want to supplement my work time these 2 hours to make sure that I'm going to go volunteer and do something to support the community." It's not, you're not going to relax, right? You're not taking time off. It's, "Hey, I want to do something with meaning, do something with impact," right? So I ask first, "Hey, can I just, exchange work time for this time and go ahead and do it?" If they say no, "Hey, are you open to me, maybe like uploading or like loading up the front of my week to make up for these 2 hours, so I'm available on Fridays?" So maybe they'll be a little bit more open to that. If they're not open to that, "Hey, maybe there's something else that you can do virtually." And I guess with the state of the world now, it's a lot more virtual mentoring and everything else happening. "Are you okay with me doing this? Maybe taking an extra 30 minutes on lunch and doing something else?" Or yeah, so making sure that you have a couple options. So maybe your manager's not really comfortable with option one, but they can see option two because it's one, it shows them that you actually put some thought and some energy around it, and then two, that you're passionate about it. So you're not about to take the first answer and then keep going, which seems kind of bad from an employee standpoint, but it also seems good because it's like, hey, this person when they're really passionate about something, they'll continue to like advocate until they're able to do it.
For sure.
Yeah.
So born and raised,
Correct.
Milwaukee, Wisconsin.
Yes, sir.
So that means that you are a Green Bay Packer fan, because I guess that's the only football team up that way, right?
Correct. Yep, it's in Green
Okay.
Bay, Wisconsin. Yep.
Oh Lord. So I'm a hope Aaron Rodgers stayed with y'all, man. I don't know. But through and through, Milwaukee. So as soon as you got back and got your first job, was your first job in Milwaukee through the entire? Because you said the program that you were on was rotational. So like, did that take you around different areas or same city?
Man, it was supposed to, but it did not. Right. Okay. So I left Wisconsin, went to North Carolina A&T, right, to get my bachelor's in electrical engineering. There I did one internship at Marathon Oil Company in Louisiana, another internship in Erie, Pennsylvania with GE Transportation, and that's where I ended up going back to. So I got my full-time offer, and it was back to Erie, Pennsylvania, since it was their U.S. Engineering hub. All of my rotations were there, even though I had 4 different experiences. So yeah, once that was done, you kind of roll off program. So you're reaching out to old managers. It's basically internally finding a job again.
Okay.
And one of my old managers had a position open in Fort Worth, Texas. So it's like, I joined this leadership program to go rotate and see other places. I've stayed in the same city for 2 years. Let me hop on this opportunity. So interviewed, was able to go and work in Fort Worth, Texas, for 2 years. And then at that time, my now wife, then girlfriend, she was in Houston, Texas. So we were still distant, but in the same state, which
A
was a
whole
good
lot
thing.
closer.
Yeah, exactly. She was ready to come back home, right? She's again born and raised from Milwaukee. That was her first excursion, living outside of the city. She didn't like it. So logically, I'm like, hey, I've been gone at this point 8 years from the city. I can go move back. So I was able to stay internally with GE to migrate over to GE Healthcare, using that same tip of sending my resume to managers and talking about it, and eventually internally landed a job. Yeah, so 2016 was us coming back home.
That's dope. So you
Yep.
went from the hot of the hot to the cold of the cold. Good for
Yeah,
you. Good for you.
exactly. That's kind of
So
my cold, hot, cold, hot. That's what I've been doing.
what was your very first volunteer program that you worked with?
Like in life, or you're talking about when I
No,
came
like
back?
as soon as you got back home to at GE.
Okay, very first was with the summer intern program. So we have different employee resource groups or affinity groups. So like the African American Forum is one of them. And what I was able to do was sit on a panel with a group of college interns, just talking about my GE experience, my career experience. So I guess that's a little bit of an internal volunteering.
Mm-hmm.
That was the biggest thing. And then the next one, I believe it was that same week, was the United Negro College Fund Run Walk. So every year in Milwaukee, they have a 5K. They raise money, right, for education. And yeah, it's kind of like a family reunion for all the Black business professional people within the city. So you kind
Mm-hmm.
of come together for a good cause. So yeah.
And then going and working at that school, was that something that you picked up once you got at work, or were you already doing certain things because you're from the area?
Um, a little bit of both, right?
Okay.
So what I did was I'm super adamant about making sure that like other students, right, other students of color, especially public schools, same schools I went to, like they see us. I was, I believe, 17 when I met my first Black engineer. Even though I knew I wanted to be an engineer since age 13. So, and again, with GE Healthcare being at one point headquartered in Milwaukee. I didn't find out about that until I was already interning for another GE business, like at the age of 21. So some of the corporations in the city are super active in the schools and others are not. Like it's a lot of companies headquartered here. So I was like, well, hey, I want to make sure that more students, one, see a black engineer, and two, realize that there's other opportunities, because I didn't see too many opportunities here, so I left. Um, just so they can recognize that. When I came to GE, a lot of the volunteer stuff was centered around certain schools or certain organizations. So, Boys and Girls Club, Big Brothers, Big Sister, which are all great organizations. Like, hey, that's cool, but can we make, like, we can expand that? Can we get into some more schools? Can we start to do more things? And what I ended up doing was host an event during Engineers Week. Had a group of high school students go ahead and create like this mobile cart, like censored up and everything else, and it needs to transport more marbles from one end to the other end. And whoever had the best design won, and I was able to get GE sponsored pizza and everything else. Then on top of that, because I believe in maximizing impact, is for all the students, because this is only maybe 20 students. For all the students we weren't able to go talk to, it's like, hey, can we set up a booth, like an information booth in the cafeteria? Have a whole bunch of GE swag and hats and everything else and candy. It's just, you got to come talk to us about what's your plan after high school, or come learn something about GE, and then you get some swag, some candy, and everything else. So after that event happened, I guess this goes into how I started to become a STEM educator. Um, they reached back out to me. That was in February during Engineers Week. Maybe that summer they reached out and said, hey, our students love this. We need engineering. We need STEM. We need somebody to come into our school to kind of help and facilitate some of this curriculum. And what they're able to do is they have electives on Wednesdays.
Mm-hmm.
So every Wednesday they'll have people from the community kind of come in to teach everything, like teach a subject, whether it's like African dance or spoken word. And I came with STEM and engineering. And yeah, I again talked to my manager about it, because now it's, hey, I'm not asking you to take time off work to go volunteer. They want to pay me to come out here and teach this curriculum. So what does that look like? Again, manager didn't have a problem with it. Again, there was no conflict with GE. Just like, again, your work's the priority. Go ahead and do it. He was pretty cool manager. Our one-on-one was during the exact like class time. So I was like, he's like, well, yeah, I'll just go and change it. Like you're fine. Because his philosophy was, if you're happy, outside of work, or if I'm allowing you to do all of these things, like you're gonna also bring your best self to work. So I kind of parlayed volunteering into like a paid gig, which was pretty cool. So
That's what's up. So right before we go into our first segment, can
yeah.
you share with me why you think representation is so important?
Man, I think it's super important, just because of, I'll say, one, just looking at the current educational system, right? We don't learn too much about Africa. We have our 1 month of Black history, right, where you're going over the exact same people. It's saying, hey, but we're learning about all these other great inventors that don't look like us, or these great people, thinkers, philosopher that doesn't look like us. So if nothing that I see looks like me, like, it's harder for me to visualize myself there. Not to say it can't be done. So I'm not a believer that if you can't see it, you can't believe it. Cause I'm like, yeah, we all got dream, we got vision, like cool, like we got that. But it's super important, because now once that representation is there, you can't unsee it,
Mm-hmm.
right? So now I've seen a prosperous Black engineer. I've seen someone who, is who's corporate, but also has a heart for the community and gives up, time with, be it from work, family, anything else, to come spend time and, care enough to invest in me, and shows up every single week for me. Right. So it's just, it's transcendent, man. The representation piece.
That's awesome. That's fantastic. So we're going to move into our first segment, which is Take Me Into Your Classroom. In this segment, we're going to break down a few things, get into the weeds a little bit, just to learn a
Okay.
whole lot more and figure this thing out. So let's go right back. You said that you found money from GE to buy pizzas for the school. So a lot of people want to do different programs and service type work, but they typically keep everything that they do outside of work. Walk me through the process of when you figured out, either through the connections you made inside your company, when you could begin leveraging the company to begin pushing the same work that you want to do outside the company, even though the two may collide and there's a benefit for the company, but how do you introduce it and then how do you push it through?
Okay. Yeah. So, depending if big company, small company, I guess it's I guess it's ways to navigate both. Even though most of my exposures with bigger companies, most companies have some arm or leg of social responsibility. So figuring out who is that right person to speak with. Most people have budgets, have something allocated toward it. So I would say figuring out who those people are. So for us, we have like GE volunteers and we have like a GE foundation. So me making sure that I figure out who those right people are, introducing myself, one, which is a networking piece, but also saying like, hey, I'm here. This is something that I'm passionate about. If you see any of these opportunities, let me know. Right. So that's one. Once they see you and you kind of make a name for yourself as someone who is showing up, who's keep talking about it and everything, eventually your name is going to start up. It's going to come up when they start to think about, okay, if we're planning for the next year, who should we start giving monies to? Who should we like? What should we be setting aside and everything else? I would say, okay, so that's like the corporate responsibility piece. If not, some managers also have like discretionary budgets. Pizza doesn't cost that much. Keep your activity a little bit, like keep it to 25, 30 students max. And kind of make that ask directly, either to your manager or their manager, to say, hey, this is something that I'm passionate about. Clearly, if I'm and depending on your field, right? So if I'm in engineering, STEM is big across the entire organization. And since we're a technical company, we want to see, more engineers in the future, right? So how do we do that? Well, a couple things. Let's expose them to a bunch of engineers. This also gets better for our brand. We can even, depending on where we are and budget allowances and everything else, we can bring them in to come and tour, and now they can really see what we're doing. Um, yeah, so I think starting to make that value proposition also for the company to say, hey, this all looks good for you, and it costs you $10 of pizza. So yeah,
No, that's
that's
what's
that.
up. And so when going into these classrooms right now to teach, because like right now you're teaching coding, you're doing what, robotics and all this, or are you just kind of helping out in
Um,
those areas?
yeah, I think my last. So I don't teach at that school anymore. I was just teaching mobile app development to a group of
Okay.
high schoolers from October to January, right before the pandemic hit. So right
Hmm.
now I'm just not teaching at the moment.
No,
Like
for sure.
as everybody's trying to figure out school and what that looks like in the
For
fall.
sure.
So yeah.
But from your experiences, like, what are the gaps that you're seeing right now for schools that are primarily for people of color?
Okay. Um, One, like we alluded to it earlier, representation is a big piece. You don't see a lot of men in
Hmm.
teaching positions, so
Okay.
that's that. You see them usually if they're in school, they're either admin, so vice principal, or the person that's over detention or disciplinary, right?
Hmm.
Versus actually being in the classroom. So that's one gap. Another gap I'll say is just exposure. So just being able to know about a ton of different things, and just students being curious. So I'll say in the classroom, most of my projects are engineering based, things you have to do, you have to work in teams with, and they're like, hey, can I go Google this? Can I go research this? I'm like, nah, I'm like, it's for y'all in the group. Y'all are Google. like figure it out. So if it's, hey, how to make this portable car charger, I give them a little bit about, current and resistors and everything else, and like, here go all the materials, figure it out. So, and the thing I love about just engineering is you can have no background about it, but all the students find a way to figure it out. So
Mm-hmm.
I don't, so the other gap is, I don't know if like educators are necessarily like pushing students to go ahead and like to be their best selves, to not necessarily hold their hands, to allow them to be a little bit curious, to be patient with them as they figure it out. So I think that's the other thing too.
Okay.
Yep. I mean, no knocks to teachers, but
No, I hear you.
right. But again, and I think with more project-based learning and everything else, is more opportunity for that, and as opposed to standardized testing and everything else, is, hey, get the students the room, and also tell them like, you can do it, because I don't know how many students hear that, right? It's, I believe you can do this. So
For sure.
now they figure it out, right? So yeah.
And then once they figure it out one time, they feel like they have the power to now figure anything out.
Yeah, exactly. It's super empowering, right? It's not and again, it's no one right work this way. Cool. They both. So yeah,
That's what's up. So you were quoted in
yeah.
the Milwaukee Business News.
Okay,
I think this was back in 2018. And
okay.
you said volunteering is one of the best ways to understand the community and the people who live there. And so from a company or corporate perspective, why is it important for someone like you who has that passion of already going out to the community? Why is it important to the company that the company understands the community and the people who live in its community?
Whew. Yeah. Okay, cool. That is super important, right? Because if the company's there in the community, these are ideally the people you're hiring, right? These are the people who are making this, who are voting, like, about taxes, about cuts, about what's happening in your community. Like, these are the people, like, the community has the power. Whether they use it and tap into it is a different story. And with that disconnectedness from the community, they feel like you're just there, like, to kind of take from the community. You get your business and you back out to the suburbs, or you're somewhere else, right?
Mhm.
You're not necessarily there. So I think it's just super important for longevity, those business community relationships, to know that, hey, I'm here. Yes, we're deciding to do business in here. We're not going to pick up and leave in a couple years and ship stuff overseas, because we see value in this community, right? So as other businesses start to integrate it, like ingrain and intertwine more with the local communities, I think it boosts like the community the community's morale. And it also just makes people who work there, who might be living in these communities as well, just feel better about it.
So then, what would be the one or two things that you think are keeping a lot of different employees, managers, et cetera, from really getting into the whole volunteer game?
Yeah, profits over people, right? If I'm like, I mean, everything is give and take, right? If I have to give up, right, certain employees to go ahead and go and volunteer, like, I'm losing out on a sales call, or I'm not able to manufacture as many products, right?
Hmm.
So that's that.
Mm.
Yeah.
I hate that, but that's so real.
Yeah, man. Yeah, same.
You put it to us plainly, man. Well, man, look, thank you for allowing me to be a student in your classroom. I really appreciate it. We're going to go ahead and shift to the fun segment of this podcast, 100 Cups of Coffee.
Let's
Like
go.
those who continue to listen and subscribe, in 2019, I did a project called 100 Cups of Coffee. And I think you'd appreciate this, Marcel, because this was a genuine networking piece where I wanted to just sit and have coffee with 100 people, without there being an ask, just intentional one-on-one relationship building. And I think you actually pointed out something that was really key. you said before you started asking stuff from people to start doing all these different programs, you just got to know them. They got to know you. They trusted you. They understood what you liked. They understood what you were passionate about. And then as they began seeing different things that you could clearly fit, they began giving you information that allowed you to start actually being able to work your passion. So, but the one thing though that's really cool when you just get to talk to people and there's no ask is you disarm the entire conversation. Because now I don't have to sit there and wait for the right time to ask you. I don't have to wait, to figure out, what's the best way of finagling you to get you to say yes to some requests.
That awkward moment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I have some questions that just allow us to just be, at the coffee table. This segment is sponsored by my father, Dr. Joe Daniels Jr., and he's provided some coffee mugs in the process of it. So it's pretty cool. Anyway, question number 1. And there's going to be a 1A and 1B for this.
Okay.
For 1, who is your favorite basketball team?
Milwaukee Bucks. Yeah.
Do you know Ray Allen played for the Bucks?
Yes.
What was his number?
34.
Who is the best person, Ray Allen or Giannis Antetokounmpo, to wear number 34, in your opinion?
Man, read the shirt, Giannis. Mad respect for Ray, though. Mad respect.
Really? I mean, didn't Ray get to the finals one year though with the Bucks?
Yeah.
And you still say it's Giannis who hasn't made the finals yet over Ray Allen?
Yeah, I mean, okay, cool. So as much as I'm a basketball fan and I'm not really into sports, I'm also like, of course, community guy, right?
Mm-hmm.
What people do off the courts as well. So
Okay.
just the activism behind Giannis. And I don't know, Ray was probably super active as well, and I think maybe that was like the 90s and everything else, but it's probably just more visible nowadays with social media. So
for sure.
So yeah.
If you had to name one thing that you pat your back on what you've been able to accomplish since you've been serving in the Milwaukee community, what would you say that one thing is?
Yeah, okay. So Milwaukee. So the one thing is I mentioned the volunteer event that parlayed me into actually working for that school. One of the students, he hit me up, let's say maybe he was a senior at the time, 2 years after that, like on Facebook, like, hey, Marcell, I don't know if you remember me, but like being part of that event literally changed my life. Now I'm at Grambling. I'm switching my major to electrical engineering. And I just want to thank you for that. So I was like, yeah, that's again, it's you go into these schools or you volunteer, hoping to make a change, make a difference and everything else. But I mean, it's a long game, right? Just like with all of the educators, you hopefully like the seeds that you're planting now would come into fruition later, but to have someone else reach out, right? So who's to say if he would be studying engineering, if he'd be in the STEM field, if not for that event where we came out, where we volunteered, where we showed them other people that look like you. So yeah.
Congrats, man. That's huge.
Thank you.
Congrats. That's big time. How did you end up at the illustrious North Carolina A&T State University, all the way from?
So my plan was to be a Morehouse man.
Okay, you gonna hop over A&T? All right.
Yeah. Oh, exactly, man. Yeah. So got in. But they were giving me no tuition money. I'm like, I'm top. I graduated like 8th in my class. Like, I'm good. Like, what do you mean you're not getting me? There's like, yeah, you can take out these 28 G's and loan. I'm like, for my freshman year? Nah. So, and at this point, and before, so we got A&T on my radar. I was in Marquette University's pre-college program, and one of the professional counselors there too, she was like, hey, if I had to redo it all again, I would do it at North Carolina A&T. So I was like, that's a bold statement.
Mm.
Like, let me go look into this school. So I'd applied. Okay, fast forward back. My heart is set on Morehouse. I got the acceptance letter. That's what I'm telling the whole world, right? School starts in August. They hit me up in July with this trash financial aid package, right? Because trash in the sense that I would have to take out so many loans.
That's trash.
Um, yeah, so I'm like, okay, it's July. It's like beginning of July. Most of the other schools I got accepted to, they were you don't send a deposit, you don't tell them you're going. They're like, nah, we out. Like, so they're like, we gave away a financial aid pocket. I'm on the phone with everybody every single day, like, where else can I go? Get a call from A&T. They was like, yo, you still coming? I was like, y'all ain't give away my financial aid? They're like, nah, I'm still here. I was like, I live in Wisconsin. I need a dorm. They're like, cool. Just submit this housing application. We got you. Click. I'm like, perfect, cool. I'm there. I'm going. I was like, you know what? Hey, somebody else told me um, when it comes to HBCUs, you basically need to get down there, and then once you start to know and network people, then you start to get access to all the funds, right? So I was like, okay, cool. I'll go. I'll thug it out. My first year, transfer over to Morehouse. So I did grind. Like ended the first semester 3.9, cool, but fell in love with the school, stayed. Like so,
That's real.
couldn't imagine me being anywhere else.
And
But yeah.
that happened to me too. I didn't want to go to Morehouse, but I was trying to put football in school, and so I was going to be like, all right, I'm just going to do my freshman year somewhere, and I'm going to try to
Yeah.
transfer to a school that I don't know. I was tripping, but once I got to A&T, I was like, oh, okay, this is it.
Yep. Exactly.
This is
Exactly.
so.
Like,
Then what?
cool. I found it. It's home. Yeah.
So then, what was your freshman year dorm?
Cooper. It was trash.
Yeah, yeah. They hit you with the okie doke at the financial aid office.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
I
come down. We
mean,
find you a spot.
I was just grateful. The good thing about that is I didn't have a roommate. Right. So that was love. Um,
That's great.
this dude never showed up. So yeah, we was good.
That's real good. All right,
Yeah.
last question. What's in the bag right now for Marcell Jackson that the world is getting ready to see that you are allowed to tell us?
Um, man, just continue to grind on these businesses, right? Again, I think now that the world's going a little bit more digital and virtual, maybe more schools will be more willing for virtual programming, especially anything with technology. Um, yeah, so I'm hoping to like dive back into that. I miss being in the classroom, being around all of the young people. Think that's about it. And we're professionally developed. Just want to make sure that I'm growing that. I got a couple ideas, so I'll see. But there's just I don't know. I believe once they in the atmosphere, they come back to you. So I just want to, yeah,
Nice.
got hope
So
for you.
quick, I have a quick follow up to that.
Yeah,
I think I saw you are a Black tech advocate. Is that what that was?
correct.
So then, the importance of of Black people in technology, as well as Black owned businesses. Um, why are they important, especially right now in this time and in this space?
Man, okay. So black-owned businesses will forever be important. During this time, it's like I feel like a lot of other companies, CEOs, people are being exposed with the advent of social media. Everything's recorded, everything is going viral, right? So one, just like morally spending your dollars with people who don't just tolerate you, actually celebrate you. So that's super important. Um, Again, black on business, like we're playing catch up, right? A lot of, I mean, there's so many disparities and there's so many disadvantages that we come up to. So, like, we need to patronize each other, right? And make sure that we're spending dollars within our own community. I don't know, this article might be dated to like 2016, but it said, hey, the average dollar, the black dollar spends an average of 6 hours in the
Mm-hmm.
black community.
I've
And I
seen that.
believe the Jewish dollars, it's like 1 or 2 weeks, right? So that means I might be getting my hair cut and then I'm somewhere else, right? I'm going when they're like 1 or 2 weeks of circulating those dollars to make sure that each other like eats, builds, and everything else. Like that's super important. So that cooperative economics piece, like it's huge. Like once we get to that, I think it'll just show us how much power we have, which also goes into the tech portion of it, because we're the biggest consumers, but we don't produce a lot. And as the world continues to go more digital, a lot of the products and stuff that'll be created is more digital products. So we need people who are like us to go ahead and start to create some of these products. So that's to be another wealth creation piece of everything. So that's super important. And then I'll say the third thing when it comes to Black tech in general is if we think about who are the people writing the code for these algorithms, right? Who are the people who are behind all of these things? I think before it was with autonomous cars, like it didn't recognize Black people just because for them it was a gap. Again, be it right, be it wrong, is if it's a whole bunch of typically younger white males doing it, like they're not thinking like we need to design this for all skin tones. So yeah, so it's like we need to be at the table, right? Because as the technology is going to continue to grow and get bigger, and if it's not us behind it, you know, helping, putting our input, actually coding, develop, like so we'll get left out of the equation. So
yeah, especially AI.
Yeah, man. Yeah, exactly. Cool. So yeah, and if you think about it, if it's just perpetuating what's already exists in the world, like things are going to get like exponentially worse for us. So yeah.
And then thinking about it, the cost to go in and reprogram those systems that get in place. I mean, we can't even reprogram people. So it's going to be super expensive to try to reprogram a system that's supposed to serve and do different things. So
yeah. So we need to be there. Yeah.
For sure. All right, last segment. This segment is called Just a Minute. This is just an opportunity to give you to inspire people like the guy you said is now at Grambling, and he's now doing electrical engineering. You know, to actually give you your flowers right now, man. There's a lot of people, but in particularly, there's a lot of Black boys and Black young men who have now been able to see themselves for who they are and cast dreams and cast goals to achieve those dreams because they were able to have some kind of interaction with you or a program that you've been able to do. And this is me seeing it from afar. So I know those guys have been impacted by your willingness to not sit behind your desk all day, but to take the initiative to tell your manager, hey, I had work to do in the community. I can't just sit here and keep making this multi-million billion-dollar company more money. I got to get out here, use some of your money, and I got to make changes in the community where you guys have failed to do so. So thank you for just being a servant. Thank you for being a leader and a servant at the same time. And just use this opportunity, man, to inspire and encourage.
Yeah, no, thank you for all those flowers. Yeah, I would say show up and do your part. We all have a part to play. So make sure that you're doing that. If I go a little bit honing in to volunteering is like you could be that one. Like you never know if it'll be that one interaction with someone, that one moment. Maybe you say something that they hold on to, just like the young man, right, who was super quiet. We didn't talk. He hit me up 2 years later, just to say like, hey, it was so much of an impact. So I would say that even if it's like small in your mind, it might be like monumental to someone else. So make yourself available, be there, show up, because you could be that one that changes somebody else's life.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. Well, man, I thank you for being on the Build Community Love podcast. Just keep up the good work. Please let me know how I can support you and we can be in the trenches together. Keep fighting a good fight to make sure, number one, you know, these kids see that they have opportunities and possibilities and provide access for them to have those opportunities and they continue to grow a business. Because at the end of the day, you know, right now, especially with the unemployment rate being what it is, they could use your services right now to be able to say, hey, I need to get professionally developed so I can at least go out here and try to find the next thing because I got to feed my family. So
Exactly.
shout out to you. How can people reach you?
All right. You can email me at info@professionallydeveloped.com. Follow me on Instagram at prodeveloped, LinkedIn, professionally developed, Facebook, professionally developed, or connect with me professionally on LinkedIn at Marcell Jackson.
All right, man. Appreciate it.
Okay. All right. Appreciate you.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you for listening to another episode on the Build Community Through Love podcast. Subscribe on all platforms to stay up to date with new episodes. Also, stay connected with us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Build Community Through Love, and visit our website at buildcommunitythroughlove.com. Let's keep working, y'all. And if someone asks, tell them we're building.